So what we'll do is I have an affidavit of citizenship. You know, they like to call me a sovereign citizen and all that stuff. So this will be stuff that other people can use too. Okay.
Yes, because you see that as a positive thing, not negative like they like to throw in our face, correct?
Right. So I did 2 affidavits. I just went on and got them recorded here. So there's an affidavit of about sovereign citizen, and then there's also an affidavit of citizenship. So we'll go through the one about citizenship first. Okay. All right. So you can see that?
Yes, clear.
Okay. So I say, this is the way I do it. Actually, I should, I already got it notarized, so the actual document says sworn. Under the Bible, you're not supposed to swear about anything. So I affirm. Anyways, there's things that I forget to do sometimes. So this is the preliminary stuff. All the facts stated herein are true, correct, complete, and not hearsay, are misleading, but are admissible as evidence, and if not rebutted, and proven inaccurate. And further, I'm competent in my affairs and all the matters described herein. No person is competent in any of my affairs. And this is actually wording that a friend of mine, we kind of worked together to get this. In absence of evidence to the contrary, I'm a Texian national and devoid of any knowledge of surrendering myself to the District of Columbia or their 14th Amendment U.S. citizen scam or their Sestakay Trust scam, as evidenced by the statement of original status that is contained herein, together with the pedigree charts that are attached hereto, all of which are in the affidavit of corporate denial, which is recorded in the Pinal Counter Recorder at fee number 2013-032373, which is now public policy and the unrebutted truth, all of which is incorporated herein by reference in its entirety. And I hold any respondents to the strictest proof to the contrary. So, yeah, that's in absence of evidence to the contrary, and I hold any respondents to the strictest proof to the contrary. So if you're going to dispute anything I say, you better have evidence. You better have good evidence. And then in absence of the evidence to the contrary, in evidence of contrary evidence, I am a free man on the land of Texas and other American states from time to time, and devoid of any knowledge of surrendering or volunteering myself to the armed forces of any country, and I hold any respondents to the strictest proof to the contrary. And I have personal, executive, and documented knowledge of the facts and evidence contained herein, and if called to testify, shall so state. And this is actually a clause that I got from someone else. I witness that the citation of state and federal statutes, codes, rules, and regulations, and court citations within any document created by me is only to notice my servants that which is applicable to them, and is not intended, nor shall it be construed to mean that I confer, submit to, or have entered into any jurisdiction alluded to thereby. And that's true. When you quote their documents, you're suggesting that you're one of their slaves. I have no firsthand knowledge of a date of birth, and my mother and the doctor who assisted with it are now dead, and I failed to cross-examine them to determine the veracity of their information. Therefore, any evidence of a date of birth is hearsay evidence and inadmissible as evidence in any court of law. But I do remember finishing high school in the year 1975, almost 50 years ago. Therefore, I'm well past the age of majority and further. The only reason, you got to understand, the only reason they want a date of birth is they need to know that you're over the age of 18. So I'm over the age of 18.
And then, you know, they say that they want the date of birth to confirm your identity. Bullshit.
Yeah, of course. That's why they want it, because they can look it up in their system. And so that's why I never give it to them. That's hearsay. And I'm not giving it to you. In absence of evidence. Sorry?
No, sir, you could just say there and abouts. I you know, it's assumed I wasn't of my full capacity. I don't have that exact knowledge.
Well, there's a common law passport that you can get that will put your date of birth 9 months before their date of birth, because your date of birth technically is when you're conceived.
That's right. Yes, you go 9 months prior to your, conception, and that's supposed to be your really birthday. So you could challenge what is the birth.
That's right.
So in that case, you would graduate from high school at 19. Then most of us, instead of because they count the time in the womb, I guess.
Well, whatever. Okay, so in absence of evidence to the contrary, I'm a Texian national and devoid of any knowledge of surrendering or volunteering myself to the District of Columbia and their government employee scam, or their Social Security scam. Since I failed to be a government employee under the District of Columbia codes, anyone who has a Social Security number is federal personnel under Title V United States Code, Section 552A13, as evidenced by the Statement of Original Status that's contained herein, together with the pedigree charts that are attached hereto, all of which is in the Affidavit of Corporate Denial, 06-2013, which is recorded with the Pinal County Recorder at fee number 2013-03-2373, which is now public policy and the unrebutted truth, all of which is incorporated herein by reference in its entirety, and I hold any respondents to the strictest proof to the contrary. So I, GlennWinningham, House of Fern, a free white Christian man, have no first-hand knowledge of when or where I was born, and any evidence of being born is hearsay evidence and inadmissible as evidence in a court of law, except to say that my mother and father were joined in the state of holy wedlock at the time I was born to them, and I am well past the age of majority, because I remember finishing high school in the year 1975, almost 50 years ago. So it's important that your mother and father were married when you were born. At common law, if they weren't married, then you don't have rights. There's certain rights you don't have. I, GlennWinningham, House of Fern, notice my middle name, was born by Hazel Loreen, House of Winningham, a free white Christian woman, an Oklahoma State citizen who was naturally born on the 26th day of November in the year 1922 in Jefferson County in Oklahoma State, a state in the Union States of America. This is the Statement of Original Status. This is so powerful. I'm telling you, this is like really powerful. Anyways, I don't think I've gone through this on this program before. So this is and I'll upload the Word file for anybody that's interested.
Okay, yeah, no, you haven't. I've never seen that before.
Hazel Loreen, House of Winningham, GlennWinningham's mother, was sired by Quitman Elbert, House of Winningham, a free white Christian man, an Oklahoma State citizen who was naturally born on the 26th day, on the 17th day of March in the year 1886 in Overton County in Tennessee State. a state in the United States of America. I got to silence my phone here just a sec. So it doesn't disrupt things here. Hazel Lorraine, House of Winningham, GlennWinningham's mother, was born by Ruby May, House of Atkins, a free white Christian woman, an Oklahoma State citizen, was naturally born on the 3rd day of May in the year 1890 in Mexia Town, Limestone County in Texas State, a state in the United States of America. And Quitman Albert, House of Winningham, and Ruby May, House of Winningham, House of Atkins, I should say, were joined in the state of holy wedlock at the time Hazel Lorraine was naturally born to them. And Quitman Albert, House of Winningham, GlennWinningham's grandfather, was sired by James Carleton, House of Winningham, a free white Christian man, a Tennessee state citizen, who was naturally born on the 28th day of April in the year 1856 in Overton County in Tennessee State, a state in the United States of America. And Quitman Albert, House of Winningham, GlennWinningham's grandfather, was born by Clementine, House of McDonald, a free white Christian woman, a Tennessee state citizen, who was naturally born on the 22nd day of September in the year 1862 in Overton County in Tennessee State, a state in the United States of America. James Carleton, House of Winningham, and Clementine, House of McDonald, were one, joined in the state of holy wedlock at the time of Quitman Albert was naturally born to them. So, I mean, it's all about the words, okay? The words are just critical. James Carleton, House of Winningham, GlennWinningham's great-grandfather, was sired by John R. or Jack, House of Winningham, a free white Christian man, was naturally born on the 22nd day of December in the year 1838 in Overton County in Tennessee State, a state in the United States of America. And James Carleton, House of Winningham, GlennWinningham's great-grandfather, was born by Eveline, House of Gray, a free white Christian woman, who was naturally born on the 1st day of January in the year 1837 in Overton County in Tennessee State, a state in the United States of America. And John Jack R., House of Winningham, and Eveline, House of Gray, were one, joined in the state of holy wedlock at the time James Carleton was naturally born to them. John or Jack R., House of Winningham, GlennWinningham's second great-grandfather, was sired by John Alston, House of Winningham, a free white Christian man, was naturally born on the 21st day of February in the year 1808 in Randolph County in North Carolina State, a state in the United States of America. And John Jack R., House of Winningham, GlennWinningham's second great-grandfather, was born by Parmelia, House of Mayfield, a free white Christian woman who was naturally born in the year 1818 in Overton County in Tennessee State, a state in the United States of America. John Alston, House of Winningham, and Parmelia, House of Mayfield, were one, joined in the state of holy wedlock at the time John Jack R. was naturally born to them. So you see where this is all coming together. Anyways, keeps going. John Alston, House of Winningham, and Parmelia, House of Mayfield. Yeah, I already said that. John Alston, House of Winningham, GlennWinningham's third great-grandfather, was sired by Adam, House of Winningham, a free white Christian man, was naturally born in the year 1781 in Randolph County in North Carolina State, a state of the United States of America. John Alston, House of Winningham, GlennWinningham's third great-grandfather, was born by Isabel, a free white Christian woman who was naturally born in the year 1782 in Virginia State, a state in the Union States of America. Adam, House of Winningham, and Isabel were joined in a state of holy wedlock at the time John Alston was naturally born to them. And further, Adam, House of Winningham, GlennWinningham's fourth great-grandfather, was sired by James J. House of Winningham, a free white Christian man, was naturally born on the 28th day of February in the year 1756 in Prince George County in the Virginia colony, which ultimately became Virginia State, a state in the Union States of America. Adam, House of Winningham, GlennWinningham's fourth great-grandfather, was born by Sarah, House of Nichols, a free white Christian woman who was naturally born in the year 1760 in Virginia colony, which ultimately became Virginia State, a state in the Union States of America. James J. House of Winningham and Sarah Nichols were one, joined in the state of holy wedlock at the time Adam was naturally born to them. I affirm that, and this is where it gets really good, quite frankly. I got it from somebody else, quite frankly, and I made a few adjustments, but I got this from somebody else. I've had this since the 80s. The 90s, for sure. It was the 90s when I got this. I affirm that I, GlennWinningham, House of Fern, am of the Adamic race. As a white Christian man, I do not now, nor would I ever voluntarily give up my unalienable, which means cannot be taken away, God-given, constitutionally secured Christian rights and principles. For I, GlennWinningham, House of Fern, have never knowingly given up my birthright as one of the descendants of the posterity, as noted in the preamble of both the Arizona State Constitution, 1905, and the Constitution of the United States of America, 1788, with its Bill of Rights, 1791, and also the designated in the Declaration of Independence, 1776, for and because my fifth great-grandparents, who were James J. House of Winningham and Sarah Nichols House of Winningham, this is like really powerful, whose grave sites and gravestones are clearly marked and now serve as an at-law public notice of their once existence and their judicial power citizenship status, which was passed on to me, GlennWinningham, House of Fern, as an inheritance for him because James J. House of Winningham was naturally born in the year 1756, living on the land now known as Prince George County in Virginia colony, which ultimately became Virginia State, a state in the Union States of America under the Articles of Confederation, 1781, and the Constitution for the Republic of the United States of America. And whereas James J. House of Winningham, born in the year 1756, and Sarah Nichols, House of Winningham, born in the year 1760, were joined in the state of holy wedlock in the year 1792, and were living on the land now known as Randolph County, Virginia, a state in the Union States of America. And these pioneers were the people who were the part, process, and action that eventually led to the establishment of the Statehood Enabling Acts of Congress. In other words, 1796 for Tennessee, 1821 for Missouri, 1905 for Arizona, which then allowed the 5,000 free white males within the boundaries then designated as territories to create said states as found in the verified abstract and order, which is recorded with Pinal County Recorder at P number 2005-028178, which is the unrebutted truth and public policy, which is incorporated herein by reference in its entirety. And this is a maxim: the right of blood and kindred cannot be destroyed by any civil law. And further, the preamble of this Constitution for the United States of America says the Constitution was written by we the people to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, who are not 14th Amendment U.S. citizens, because 14th Amendment U.S. citizens failed to exist. And this is Manchester versus Boston reports, which Will Livingston, who ratified the Constitution on behalf of New Jersey, is my fourth great uncle, evidencing that I'm posterity is found in the preamble as one of we the people, and I am a state in this union because we the people are the state. And this is no state legislator or executive or judicial officer can war against the Constitution without violating his undertaking to support it. The constitutional theory is that we the people are the sovereigns, the state and federal officials only are agents. The government is but an agency of the state being the sovereign people. A state does not owe its origin to the government of the United States. In the highest and any of its branches, it was in existence before it. It derives its authority from the same pure and sacred source as itself, the voluntary and deliberate choice of the people. And that's Chisholm versus Georgia, 1793. So, and this other one's 1958. Anyways, I'm one of the sovereign people. The words people of the United States and citizens are synonymous terms and mean the same thing. They both describe the political body who, according to our republican institutions, form the sovereignty and who hold the power and conduct the government through their representatives. They are what we familiarly call the sovereign people, and every citizen is one of this people and a constituent member of the sovereignty. Dred Scott versus Sanford, U.S. Supreme Court. At the Revolution, the sovereignty devolved on the people, and they are truly the sovereigns of the country, but they are sovereigns without subjects, and have none to govern but themselves. The citizens of America are equal as fellow citizens and joint tenants in the sovereignty. Chisholm versus Georgia, 1793. It will be admitted on all hands that with the exceptions of the powers granted to the states and federal governments through the Constitution, the people of the several states are unconditionally sovereign within their respective states. Because we have a Republican form of government, we are all sovereign citizens, as evidenced by House Joint Resolution 183, dated May 3rd, 1940, at 54 Stat 178, says in the preamble, whereas it is desirable that the sovereign citizens of our nation be prepared for the responsibilities and impressed with the significance of their status in our self-governing republic. Whereas some 2 million young men and women in the United States each year reach the age of 21 years, and whereas it's desirable that the sovereign citizens of our nation be prepared for the responsibilities and impressed with the significance of their status in our self-governing republic, therefore be it resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America and Congress assembled that, and then it has some other stuff there. But so the important thing is they call them sovereign citizens. Because the government is subordinate to the people, let a state be considered as subordinate to the people, but let everything else be subordinate to the state. And that's Chisholm versus Georgia. Because we, the people, are the state. No state legislature or executive judicial officer can war against the Constitution. I read all these three citations already. And an American national by right of blood, because my ancestors were in the colony of Virginia, and the colony of North Carolina, the colony of Maryland prior to the War of Independence. And my rights cannot be destroyed by any civil law, and all the laws of Texas and all the laws of Congress are civil laws. And the right of blood and kindred cannot be destroyed by any civil law. That's a maxim of law. And because my ancestors wrote the federal and state constitutions for the United States of America, the power which is derived cannot be greater than that from which it is derived. And the power and authority of all state and federal government officials is derived from me. And because it brings into action and enforces this great and glorious principle that the people are the sovereign of this country, and consequently that fellow citizens and joint sovereigns cannot be degraded by appearing with each other in their own courts to have their controversies determined. That's Chisholm versus Georgia again. That case has got so much good stuff in it, let me tell you. And their oaths of office are to we the people. Sovereignty itself is, of course, not subject to law, for it is the author and source of law. But in our system, while sovereign powers are delegated to the agencies of government, sovereignty itself remains with the people, by whom and for whom all government exists and acts, which means they all operate under my authority. A sovereign is exempt from suit, not because of any formal conception or obsolete theory, but on the logical and practical ground that there can be no legal right as against the authority that makes the law on which the right depends. That is a good one. The sovereignty of a state does not reside in the persons who fill the different departments of its government, but in the people from whom the government emanated, and they may change it at their discretion. Sovereignty then in this country abides with the constituency and not with the agent. And this remark is true both in reference to the federal and state governments. And said it is impossible for we the people to confer a sovereignty which will extend over me. The sovereignty of a state extends to everything which exists by its own authority, is introduced by its permission. But does it extend to those means which are employed by Congress to carry into execution powers conferred on that body by the people of the United States? We think it demonstrable that it does not. Those powers were not given by the people of a single state. They're given by the people of the United States to a government whose laws made in pursuance of the Constitution are declared to be supreme. Consequently, the people of a single state cannot confer a sovereignty which will extend over them. And that's U.S. Supreme Court, McCullough versus Maryland. And I am exempt not because of any formal conception or obsolete theory, but on the logical and practical ground that there can be no legal right as against the authority that makes the law on which the right depends. Which means my authority makes the law, and I have all the rights that formerly belonged to the king. The people of a state are entitled to all rights which formerly belonged to the king by his prerogative. Lansing versus Smith, 1829. That there is a citizenship of the United States and a citizenship of the states, which were distinct from each other depending on different characteristics and circumstances in the individual. And it was only privileges and immunities of citizens of the United States that were placed by the 14th Amendment under the protection of the federal government, and that the privileges and immunities of citizens of a state, whatever they might be, were not intended to have any additional protection by the paragraph in question, but they must rest for their security and protection where they have heretofore rested. That means common law. A state citizen is immune from any and all government attacks and procedure absent contract. And as the Supreme Court has stated clearly, every man is independent of all laws except those prescribed by nature. He is not bound by any institutions formed by his fellow men without his consent. The rights of individuals are restricted only to the extent that they've been voluntarily surrendered by citizenship to the agencies of government. And my rights are incapable of being impaired by legislation or judicial decision. State citizens are the only ones living under free government whose rights are incapable of impairment by legislation or judicial decision. State citizenship is a vested substantial property right, and the state has no power to divest or impair these rights. 1929. The sovereignty of the state does not reside in the persons who fill the different departments. I've already read that one. And because I am a free inhabitant, as found in Article 4 of the Articles of Confederation, that all the rights and privileges of citizens in the several states. And this is Article 4, Articles of Confederation, the free inhabitants of each state, paupers, vagabonds, and fugitives from justice accepted shall be entitled to privileged immunities of free citizens in the several states. And which is basically the same thing in Article 4, Section 2 of the Constitution. And as a citizen of a state, I'm entitled to all the privileged immunities of citizens in the several states. And that's what Article 4, Section 2 says. I'm also a judicial power citizen. The judicial power is the power to hear those matters which affect life, liberty, or property of the citizens of the state. The very meaning of sovereignty is that the decree of the sovereign makes law. Sovereignty itself is, of course, not subject to law, for it is the author and source of law. But in our system, all sovereign powers are delegated to the agencies of government. Sovereignty itself remains with the people, by whom and for whom all government exists and acts. There is no such thing as a power of inherent sovereignty in the government of the United States. In this country, sovereignty resides in the people, and Congress can exercise no power which they have not, by their Constitution, entrusted to it. All else is withheld. State citizens are the only ones living under free government, and my rights are incapable of impairment by legislation or judicial decision. And I think I read that one already, and that one too, the second one. In our country, the people are sovereign, and the government cannot sever its relationship to the people by taking away their citizenship. The 14th Amendment turned things on their head. United States versus Rhodes, Colgate versus Harvey. And this is a quote out of Colgate versus Harvey. While the 14th Amendment does not create a national citizenship, it has the effect of making that citizenship paramount and dominant instead of derivative and dependent upon state citizenship. But the 14th Amendment failed to affect the original state citizens, and this is that Maxwell versus Dow case that I already read. It talks about that the privileged immunities of citizens of a state, whatever they might be, must rest where they have heretofore rested. And it continues to this day. This is a 1993 court case. Privileged immunities clause of the 14th Amendment protects only those rights peculiar to being a citizen of the federal government. It does not protect those rights which relate to state citizenship. And all government officials are required to protect my rights. It is true that at common law, the duty of the Attorney General is to represent the king, he being the embodiment of the state. But under the democratic form of government now prevailing, the people are king. So the Attorney General's duties are to that sovereign rather than to the machinery of government. That's why I'm going after Paxton, because he's busy defending the machinery of government. And the oath of office, all government officials, requires that they support the Constitution, which means I'm entitled to a Republican form of government. The United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a Republican form of government, which fails to include any military commissioners, because military commissioners are operating under international law and the law of nations. And this is Article 27 of General Orders 100, which is the Libra Code. The law of war can no more wholly dispense with retaliation than can the law of nations, of which it is a branch. But in considering the question before us, it must be borne in mind that there is no law of nations standing between the people of the United States and their government, and interfering with their relation to each other. The powers of the government and the rights of the citizens under it are positive, practical regulations, plainly written down. The people of the United States have delegated it certain enumerated powers and forbidden it to exercise others. And because it brings into action and enforces this great and glorious principle that the people are the sovereign of this country, and consequently that fellow citizens and joint sovereigns cannot be degraded by appearing with each other in their own courts to have their controversies determined. And a Republican form of government fails to include any star chambers with their forced bar counsel. The corrupt star chamber courts of England required defendants to have counsel. Star chamber stood for swiftness and arbitrary power. It's a limitation on the common law. That's U.S. Supreme Court, Ferretta versus California. And a Republican form of government fails to include any statutes, codes, rules, or regulations, because all statutes, codes, rules, or regulations are taken in martial law, which apply only to subjects of the enemy, 14th Amendment U.S. citizens, and aliens. But in fact and in law, such statutes are intended to be applied to those who are here as residents in the state under the Interstate Commerce Clause of the Federal Constitution and the so-called 14th Amendment, and that's U.S. versus United Mine Workers, U.S. Supreme Court. Military jurisdictions of two kinds. First, that which is conferred and defined by statute. Second, that which is derived from the common law of war. Military offenses under the statute law must be tried in the manner therein directed, but military offenses which do not come within statute must be tried and punished under the common law of war. The character of the courts can exercise these jurisdictions depends on the local laws of each particular country. In the armies of the United States, the first is exercised by court-martial, while cases which do not come within the rules and articles of war or the jurisdiction conferred on by statute on court-martial are tried by military commissions. Okay, so that's what we have. That's what's all over the place, military commissions. That's Article 13, General Orders 100 of the Libra Code. And this is Field Manual 27-5, United States Army and Naval Manual of Civil Affairs, 1947. Military government, responsibilities, functions, establishment of courts, and administrative law. Civil affairs, military government personnel are charged with the following: establish and administration of military commissions, provost-marshals, and special military government courts, and their jurisdiction and procedure. Supervision, control, or closing, if necessary, of local criminal and civil courts. Supervision of members of the local bar. Decisions as to modifications or suspension of local criminal and civil laws, general legal advice, and assistance of all aspects of the occupation. 14th Amendment U.S. citizens are created by Congress and therefore corporations under the Commerce Clause. Congress can't do anything but create corporations, so they have to be corporations. But the term resident and citizen of the United States is distinguished from a citizen of one of the several states in that the former is a special class of citizen created by Congress. And then this is Public Law 100-418, August 23rd, 1988. Definitions as used in this section. The term United States business means A, a United States citizen, B, a corporation, partnership, or other association. Which is why the Supreme Court has ruled that for 14th Amendment U.S. citizens, the boundaries of the District of Columbia expand throughout the states of the Union. And this is National Mutual Insurance Company versus Tidewater Transfer Company, U.S. Supreme Court, 1948. There's actually a lot of cases that talk about this. In other words, Congress has exclusive legislative jurisdiction over citizens of Washington District of Columbia, U.S. citizens, and through their plenary power nationally covers those citizens, even when in one of the several states, as though the district expands for the purpose of regulating its citizens wherever they go throughout the states of the Union. And in the Kavanaugh hearings, when he was appointed to the Legislative Inferior Supreme Court, he even said the government can go after a U.S. citizen in Afghanistan, which means the minor estate at 31 CFR 363.6 is a 14th Amendment citizen. And so entity means any owner of a Treasury direct account that is not an individual. Entity is a sole proprietorship, partnership, corporation, limited liability, professional limited liability, trust, the estate of a decedent, or the estate of a living person, such as a minor, incompetent, or a minor. Minor means an individual under the age of 18 years. The term minor is also used to refer to an individual who's attained the age of 18 years, but has not yet taken control of the securities contained in his or her minor account. Because the 14th Amendment U.S. citizens at 31 CFR 363.6 are created by Congress, they fail to have any rights not granted by Congress and are subject to the plenary power of Congress. Plenary, a court's full and absolute power of the subject matter and the parties in the case. It's a dictatorship. Plenary, that's Black's Law Dictionary, 8th edition, Black's Law Dictionary, 9th edition, full, complete, entire. Plenary power, complete power over a particular area with no limitations. This term is often used to describe the commerce power of Congress. Under the Commerce Clause, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3, Commerce is granted full power over interstate commerce. The court has found that states are not able to pass laws affecting interstate commerce without the permission of Congress. And that's Legal Information Institute, that's Cornell Law School, which means no common law rights. There are no common law offenses against the United States, only those acts which Congress has forbidden, with penalties for disobedience of its command or crimes. And 14th Amendment U.S. citizens, 31 CFR 363.6, do not have access to the first 8 amendments to the Constitution against the powers of the federal government. The privileged immunities of citizens of the United States do not necessarily include all the rights protected by the first 8 amendments to the federal Constitution against the powers of the federal government. The right to trial by jury in civil cases, guaranteed by the 7th Amendment, and the right to bear arms, guaranteed by the 2nd Amendment, have been distinctly held not to be privileged immunities of citizens of the United States, guaranteed by the 14th Amendment against abridgment by the states. And in effect, the same decision was made in respect of guarantee against prosecution, except by indictment of a grand jury, contained in the 5th Amendment, and in respect of the right to be confronted with witnesses, contained in the 6th Amendment. The term citizen in the United States is analogous to the term subject in the common law. The only absolute and unqualified right of a U.S. citizen is to residence within the territorial boundaries of the United States. I am a man, and it is impossible for me to be a 14th Amendment U.S. citizen because I'm white. All citizens in the United States shall have the same right in their territory as is enjoyed by white citizens thereof to inherit, purchase, lease, sell, hold, convey real and personal property. That's 42 U.S.C. Section 1982 to this day. Look it up. It's there. No white person born within the limits of the United States and subject to their jurisdiction and born without those limits and subsequently naturalized under their laws owes a status of citizenship to the recent amendments of the federal Constitution. You know, it's all in what you say. You know, I've seen black people claim to be sovereigns, and they are, because who knows who was sleeping with who in the 1700s. And so I've seen black people do it, and all you have to do is say, I'm white. I don't care if you're black or any other color. And the so-called 14th Amendment requires the only persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction. And there's 14th Amendment, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. And the evident meaning of these last words do not merely mean subject in some respect or degree to the jurisdiction of the United States, but completely subject. The persons declared to be citizens are all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction of thereof. The evident meaning of these last words is not merely subject in some respect or degree to the jurisdiction of the United States, but completely subject. So that means Commerce Clause. So if you're in the Commerce Clause, then you're a slave, basically. The 14th Amendment referred to slavery. Consequently, the persons born embraced by its provision and for which Congress was authorized to legislate in the manner were those then in slavery. The rights of the original judicial citizens of the state are not under consideration in the 14th Amendment. They stand as they did before the 14th Amendment and are guaranteed by other provisions. Merely being native born in the territorial boundaries of the United States does not make such an inhabitant a citizen of the United States subject to the jurisdiction of the 14th Amendment. And notice that's Elk versus Wilkins, 1884, and so is this one. Same case. That's another quote out of that same case. All bar members, judges, clerks, anyone else who has an oath of office holds their oath of office to me. And all courts are my property. And because it brings into an action and enforces this great and glorious principle that the people are the sovereign of this country, and consequently the fellow citizens and joint sovereigns cannot be degraded by appearing with each other in their own courts to have their controversies determined. Let's just check on YouTube and see what's happening over there. Oh, look at that. I got lots of people there, and they're asking questions. Okay. I have to say that I respect a lot of this information and that, but the political talk is ridiculous. I can't drink water. Fish mess around in it. You can't drink water because fish take a shit in it, eh? Have evidence to the contrary? Yeah, well. Why is Lamar Schwartz not speaking? And Kelly Jackson is so quiet. Where's Mario Jones? Common law passport. Wild Whore has a lot of great experience with that. Yeehaw. She and Mona are no longer, so they're just, Glenn, there are no color lines. Please remove the white power color nonsense. I agree. I'm just reading what the court cases say, and it doesn't matter what color you are. All you have to do is say the words.
Hey, in Canada, you can be 176 different colors.
Lori Hanson might be a barfly attorney, Glenn. Well, whatever. They're not all bar members are not necessarily bad. I don't think she is, though. I've known her for quite a while. We need to separate ourselves from the sovereign crown surname. All this case law may not be good to your cause. Actually, it's going to be good. It's really good. Hit the thumbs up. Yeah, with all due respect, I think the more talking I hear, the less it seems you all know. Well, back at you.
Thank you for the compliment. That's not the first time I've been insulted with the attorney.
Yeah, I don't worry about it too much. But anyway, so let's go back to it. So, and any evidence of me following any statute, code, rule, or regulation should be taken as a courtesy only. And any government official that fails to protect my rights is rigged his immunity, and he may have enjoyed and is fully liable in his private capacity. Where any state proceeds against a private individual in a judicial forum, it's well settled that the state, county, municipality, etc., waives any immunity to counters, cross-claims, and complaints by direct or collateral means regarding the matters involved. That's true. When enforcing mere statutes, judges of all courts do not act judicially and thus are not protected by qualified or limited immunity. And that's the first thing they say is we have immunity. Well, You know, it's interesting that in my case that I filed with the federal court, I sued the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and the Attorney General tried to represent him, and I did a motion to strike. So then the Attorney General came back and said that they could offer. They put a court case in there that said that they could offer a settlement. And I said, I don't want a settlement. I want his bond. Not a penny more, not a penny less. Maybe he can dig ditches or something, or live in a cardboard box. The Bible says he's supposed to get the punishment that he's trying to inflict on me. And so, and now he's resigned. So anyways, immunity for judges do not extend to acts which are clearly outside their jurisdiction. In arriving at our decision in this matter, we do not depart in any way from our holding in Huneling versus Jensen that the doctrine of judicial immunity extends to courts of limited jurisdiction, but when a minor magistrate acts wholly without jurisdiction, civil liability attaches for his malicious and corrupt abuse of process and his willful and malicious oppression of any person under the pretense of acting in his official capacity. Right, it's a pretense. That's what I say. I say, the government can't commit treason, so they can't be representing the government. They're in their private capacity. And that is the single most powerful argument that you can make, because it's true. I've done that where I accused the government of committing treason, and it was like a big joke. I'm telling you, I've been in the courts a lot of times, and that was one of the first things I did. And so the government can't commit treason. The government can't do that. And so then that means they're not operating in their official capacity. They're operating in their private capacity. And any government official that attempts to subject me to their military dictatorship is perjuring their oath of office. Statutes have been passed extending courts of admiralty and vice admiralty far beyond their ancient limits for depriving us of the accustomed and estimable privilege of trial by jury in cases affecting both life and property, to supersede the course of common law and instead thereof publish in the order the use and exercise of the law martial. That's why you cannot mix your law. And for altering fundamentally the form of government established by charter, we saw the misery to which such despotism, that's just another word for dictatorship, folks. And that's taken from the Causes of Necessity for Taking Up Arms, 1775, by the Continental Congress. In despotic governments, the government has usurped in a similar manner both upon the state and the people, hence all arbitrary doctrines and pretensions concerning the supreme, absolute, and uncontrollable power of government, and each man is degraded from a primary rank which he ought to hold in human affairs. In the latter, the state as well as the man is degraded. Of both degradations, striking instances occur in history, in politics, and in common life. And that's that Chisholm versus Georgia case. There is so much good stuff in there. And any government official that fails to protect my rights is engaged in a seditious conspiracy. If two or more persons in any state or territory in any place subject to the jurisdiction of the United States conspire to overthrow, put down, or to destroy by force the government of the United States, or to levy war against them, or to oppose by force the authority thereof, or by force to prevent, hinder, or delay the execution of any law of the United States, or by force to seize, take, possess any property of the United States contrary to the authority thereof, they shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 20 years or both. And they're operating under color of law. Color of law is mere semblance of legal right. An action done under color of law is one done with apparent authority of the law, but actually in contravention of the law. That's Barron's Canadian Law Dictionary. Color means an appearance, a semblance, or a simulacrum as distinguished from that which is real, a prima facie or apparent right, hence a deceptive appearance, a plausible assumed exterior, concealing a lack of reality, a disguise, or a pretext. Black's Law Dictionary, 5th edition. Color. Yeah, I've already got that one. I guess I got that twice. Yeah, looks like it. Page 51. Yeah, it does. Okay, by assaulting me with their fictitious 14th Amendment, U.S. citizen, minor estate, 31 CFR 363, which is a fraud. By metaphysical refinement and examining the form of our government, it might be correctly said that there is no such thing as a citizen of the United States. A citizen of any one of the states of the Union is held and called a citizen of the United States, although technically and abstractly there is no such thing. And this is This is a code of law for the District of Columbia, which was approved March 3rd, 1901. The legal estate to be the cestui use. That's where it got started. The term resident and citizen of the United States, actually it got started with the Cestui V Act. This is where it came into this country. The term resident and citizen of the United States is distinguished from a citizen of one of the several states in that the former is a special class of citizen created by Congress. A citizen of the United States is a civilly dead entity operating as co-trustee and co-beneficiary of the public charitable trust, the constructive cestui trust of U.S. Inc. under the 14th Amendment, which upholds the debt of the USA and U.S. Inc. And that's a summary, okay? That's a summary. I can't tell you how many people have contacted me about this. It's 5 pages of the congressional record, okay? Has anybody looked at the congressional record? That's a summary of what those 5 pages say.
Do you have it? Will you give it to us?
Sorry?
Do you have it in your files? Will you share it with us?
I might. I'd have to look. I probably do. Every taxpayer is a cestui trust having sufficient interest in preventing abuse of the trust is to be recognized in the field of this court's prerogative jurisdiction. That's another summary of that case. We'll see. I'll see if I can find it. That'll take some time, though. I might have to upload it later if I've got it. Which originated with the Roman cult. And this is Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition, under the volume 2, under the definition of mort main. See, Tomlin's Law Dictionary is interesting because there's no page numbers. And so the only way that you can do it is you have to just, volume 2, under the definition of mort main. But that definition is like about 4 pages. Anyways, yet still it was found difficult to set bounds to ecclesiastical ingenuity. For when they were driven out of all their former holes, they devised a new method of conveyance, okay? So they're stealing my land with the cestui V trust is what they're doing, or they're trying to. I think I'm going to break it off in their ass. Anyways, by which the lands were granted not to themselves directly, but to nominal fiefs, to the use of the religious houses, thus distinguishing between the possession and the use. And use is usufruct. This is all Roman law. And receiving the actual profits, while the season of the land remained in the nominal fiefs, who was held by the courts of equity, then under the direction of the clergy. That's the Roman cult, folks. Still today even. They're all Roman cult. They're Satanists. To be bound in conscience to account to a cestui use for the rents and emoluments of the estate. That's taxes, folks. That's what they're talking about there. Think about it. And it is to these inventions that our practitioners are indebted for the introduction of uses and trusts, the foundation of modern conveyancing. So you go back to this DC code, right? The legal estate to be in the cestui use. That's where they brought it into America. This is where it talks about it in 1835 edition. It actually goes back to the Cestui V Act of 1666. And they cannot claim good faith under their state edicts under martial law. And this is Texas Code of Criminal Procedure, Article 38.23. The first paragraph sounds so good. Okay, it says, no evidence obtained by an officer or other person in violation of any provision of the constitutional laws of the state of Texas or the constitutional laws of the United States shall be admitted in evidence against the accused on the trial of any criminal offense. And then B, it is an exception to the provision of subsection A of this article that the evidence was obtained by a law enforcement officer acting in good faith reliance upon a warrant issued by a neutral magistrate based on probable cause. None of them have probable cause, and they're not neutral. Anyways, so they claim good faith. I've had cops actually tell me that. And yeah, but you don't have good faith now that I told you. Or their edicts under martial law federal statutes. Same thing in the federal courts. Defense, a good faith reliance on a court warrant or order, a grand jury subpoena, a legislative authorization, or a statutory authorization, including a request of a governmental entity under Section 2703F of this title, a request of an investigative or law enforcement officer under Section 2518.7 of this title, or a good faith determination that Section 2511.3 of this title permitted the conduct complained of, is a complete defense to any civil or criminal action brought under this chapter or any other law. By criminally converting my proper appellation into the fictitious fraud, GlennWinningham Fern in all block capital letters in my case, using the minor estate and capitis diminutio. Capitis diminutio is the destruction of the caput or legal personality. Capitis diminutio, so to speak, wipes out the former individual and puts a new one in its place. Between the old and the new individual, there is, legally speaking, nothing in common. A juristic personality may be thus destroyed in one of three ways. By loss of status libertatis, this is the capitis diminutio maxima. By loss of status civitatis, which is the capitis diminutio media. You'll see that in Canada. And by severance of the agnatic family, this entails capitis diminutio minima. And this is taken from the Institutes, a textbook on the history and system of Roman law. And capitis diminutio maxima, meaning the maximum loss of status through the use of capitalization, the highest and most comprehensive loss of status. This occurred when a man's condition was changed from one of freedom to one of bondage, when he became a slave. It swept away all the rights of citizenship and family rights. Because capitis diminutio maxima is used when they enslave you, and they are Satanists using fraud and deception to sell you into slavery as collateral for their minor estate. He, the prisoner, has as a consequence of his crime not only forfeited his liberty, but all his personal rights except those which the law in its humanity affords him. He is for the time being a slave of the state. And by criminally converting my postal address from the land of Texas into their District of Columbia territory with the use of a zip code, they're all satanic children of the devil. You're of your father the devil, and the lust of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. But the fearful and the unbelieving and abominable and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and pharmaceutical drug pushers, which is sorcerers, and idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. And their judgment day is coming. I know thy works and tribulations, and I know the blasphemy of them that say they are Jews or Christians, and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. And at common law they would all be put to death. Deuteronomy 24:7, if a man be found stealing any of his brethren of the children of Israel, maketh merchandise of him or selleth him, then that thief shall die. Thou shalt put evil away from among you. Which is why they need to orchestrate their military dictatorship, because it uses international law to supersede and replace common law. And this is that causes and necessities for taking up arms site that I read earlier. The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights was ratified by Congress as Treaty 95-20, which means it's a supreme law of the land, and Article 1 affirms my right to self-determination. All peoples have the right to self-determination. By virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development. That's Article 1, Clause 1 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. Which means I decide who I am, not some oath-perjuring bureaucrat. And all bar members and other officers of my court are required to know the law. Officers of the court have no immunity when violating a constitutional right, for they are deemed to know the law. Ignorance of the law is no excuse, and all officers of my court are presumed to know the law. Ignorance of the law does not excuse misconduct in anyone, least of all a sworn officer of the law. It is one of the fundamental maxims of common law that ignorance of the law excuses no one. Officers of the court have no immunity when violating a constitutional right, for they are deemed to know the law. Submitted by declaration, and that's it. And then what I did is I attached, matter of fact, I'll show you I think I've got it up here. No, I don't. I'll get it up. I'll show you I've added some pedigree charts. So I'll just share that right now. So this is a PDF of the same file. So it's 21 pages. Right. So there's where it's signed. And the notary. And there's the pedigree chart. So this is my mother. Her father. And her mother. So this is all my genealogy. Now, if you go to Ancestry.com, that's actually run by the Mormon Church, I understand. And what they do is you have to understand that the first 3 generations are considered private. And so if you want, all you have to do is fill in 3 generations, and then you go there. And a lot of times somebody has done the research already, and you can come up with your ancestors beyond 3 generations. So you, your mother, your grandfather, your grandparents, and maybe your great-grandparents, I'm not sure. But 3 generations is all you need to do, and after that, it's public, and they have that stuff available for anybody that wants it. I don't know if you have to pay for it. This is just something I heard. Anyways, this is further back. The Winninghams going back to 1732. There's actually and this is John R. Jack Winningham and he actually had 2 wives. I guess one died, and then there was another one, Parmelia Mayfield. Anyways, if you go back here, William Todd Livingston. Okay, well, Will Livingston, think about it. It wouldn't be hard for a guy by the name of William Todd Livingston to have a son by the name of Will Livingston, or just call himself Will Livingston instead of William Todd Livingston Jr. And he would have been Henry's brother. And then Mary Polly Livingston, Parmelia Mayfield. So that's where I'm claiming that he's my 4th great uncle. And but I have lots of other ones, and I attach this because I'm basically saying that if you don't like that line, I've got a bunch of other ones here. But 1732, there's a family story that in the 1600s there was a guy by the name of Buckingham in old England that was getting in these duels, and he would win the duels all the time. And so he had the families, you win the duel, you kill the other guy, right? And so the families of those people that he was killing were coming after him, wanting to get him into duels. And he didn't want to be getting into the duels all the time. So he came to America and changed his name to Winningham. And I guess that's where Winningham came from. That's the story. There's no evidence or proof anywhere that we've come up with. And that was in the 1600s. But Buckingham, maybe the Queen's living in my house, eh? Or the king, or the tyrant. Don't get me going.
They stole the name. Don't get me going.
Yeah, they did. You're right. They did. Yeah, you're right. Well, Buckingham, that's not the Queen. Yeah, they stole that name for sure. Windsor, the House of Windsor. But anyways, so I have that on the end. I've attached it, and so if anybody's going to dispute some of it, then produce some evidence. So anyways, this is the whole thing. Now, the other one I have, how long have we been going so far? Looking here.
Not long enough. Don't get me going. You don't want to get me going, Glenn.
An hour and a half.
You're bringing the fire, Glenn. God bless you.
Well, I'm glad you like it, and it's a networking thing, and so bring the fire. You're getting the ammunition. Now you can do it yourself. Anyways, let me upload the Word file for that.
I found out something this week that you can, I haven't heard you touch on, but You're gonna like it. It's juicy. It's about engineers.
Oh, yeah? Well, go ahead. Break it to me.
Yeah, you ready for it? No, somebody wrote a FOIA to the engineer department and asked them to define commerce, if there was any private, if there was any such thing as a private commerce transaction. And they wrote back that everything in commerce is fictitious. There you go.
Well, that's not surprising at all. It's a fraud. That's all they can do is fraud. That's all they do. Everything they do is lie. They're Satanists. Think about it. Don't get me going.
The engineers are like the biggest boys in town, right? In my view, anyway.
Well, I think that's their biggest problem is you know, they went and made all these technical stuff, and the engineers are the ones that are figuring it out. The engineers and the scientists, because they're smart, they figure it out, and they're using it to break it off in their backside. You know, that's my attitude. You know, I haven't been able to work since 2015. So if they're going to make it so I can't get a compensation for a labor contract, then I'm gonna sit at home and study this stuff and learn about it and break it off in their ass. And you know, so anyways, don't get me going. Don't get me going. So
don't get me going.
That's right.
Hey, guys, I just popped in here, and Glenn, I was hearing you talking about ignorance of law. I'm a newbie to this, so don't crucify me about this. But when you say ignorance is no excuse or something like that, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. What make your statement?
But when it says ignorance is no excuse, but and I'm not challenging you on this or anything like that, but I have read where let's say switch the roles where you're in front of a judge and the judge looks at you and says the ignorance of law is no excuse. But you can rebut and say, well, ignorance of a fact is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. But the law is different than the facts.
Right. But ignorance of a fact. So if I'm not, like I said, I just jumped in and heard you. I just now jumped in.
Well, okay, so maybe it's better to sit back and listen.
Yep. No, but I was just I had just read it. I'm a newbie, so please forgive me. It was just kind of a...
Okay, well, we've heard it now.
All right, I'll mute myself. Sorry.
No, I muted you. Anyways, let's talk about this other one. Okay, this is a affidavit of truth on sovereign citizens, and this one's kind of well, this is going to be my next lawsuit, quite frankly. And so anybody can use this stuff, though. And this will give you some information to where you can find some stuff that there's some websites and things. So we'll go through this one next. Affidavit on truth about sovereign citizen. So it basically starts off the same way. Because of recent events, I find it necessary to make this declaration about the phrase sovereign citizen, which saddened me because so many people allow themselves to be deceived by our enemies, as discussed in Lieutenant General Flynn's book on fifth-generation warfare. I keep getting called a sovereign citizen by government officials, especially bar members and military police, like it's some bad thing. It looks like they're engaged in war crimes by taking reprisals against me for my political beliefs and support of their communist Chinese buddies. Two communists in the 1960s, Cloward and Pivens, outlined their strategy to overthrow our Constitution and seize control of the government with the three-step strategy. Create a deep state and take reprisals against ordinary Americans like me. Open the borders and allow millions of foreigners into the country and spend money like mad to destroy the dollar. The Central Intelligence Agency asset Barry Soetoro, a.k.a. Barack Obama, was busy implementing that strategy as evidenced by Patrick Byrne's book and docuseries entitled The Enemy Within, which was continued by Obama's tool, Joe Biden. According to Jerome Corsi in a YouTube video in 2015, 5 generals came to see him and told him they were going to overthrow Obama. And Corsi told them they might wish to talk to Donald Trump first. And according to Corsi, 3 months later, he got a phone call, and they had decided not to do it because Donald Trump had agreed to run for president. And my opinion is that the entire Trump administration was a giant military psyop, as discussed in my book, Trump, A True American Patriot or Not. Barack Obama stated in the bought and paid for news media he intended to murder any terrorist anywhere, U.S. citizen or not, and without a trial and without due process of law, as found in the Fox News article by Judge Andrew Napolitano on 7th of February 2013, and on the Telegraph News article by John Swine on 6 March 2013, and the New York Times News article by Vicky Divol, or Divol, however that's pronounced, on January 16th, 2013. And numerous other articles. Then Obama's order followers proceeded to do exactly that because they wanted to complete a commercial transaction and hopefully murder anybody who thought they had rights. Patrick J. Elko, special agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation Military Police, and Conrad Rodriguez of the Texas Department of Safety Military Police, both with the Joint Terrorism Task Force, visited me over 13 years ago on or about the 5th day of March in the year 2011. And at that time, Rodriguez told me 3 times that I'm listed as sovereign in their hearsay computer system, and as evidenced by the intelligence bulletin issued by the Texas Department of Public Safety, listing me as armed and dangerous because I sent the Montana Director of the Highway Patrol and other government officials a notice and demand in which I accepted their oath of office, heaven forbid, and which I told them that I had the right to resist an unlawful arrest with lethal force if necessary, as evidenced by the Amistad, where the people killed all of their captors except for one because they did not know how to sail, and they demanded that the one survivor take them back to Africa, and where the Supreme Court of the United States dismissed the murder charges and ordered them to be returned to Africa. And that's found in the United States versus Schooner Amistad, 40 U.S. 518, 1841. A true copy of which is attached here to, all of which is incorporated herein by reference in its entirety, so that what's attached is the intelligence bulletin. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, military police, create the sovereign citizen to create a buzzword for persecution and then circulate numerous news releases stating that all sovereign citizens are terrorists, as found in an ABC News article entitled Sovereign Citizens, Terrorism Assessment Warns of a Rising Threat from Anti-Government Extremists by James Thomas on 30th of November 2015. Excuse me. And a news article on RT.com entitled As Sovereign Citizens Seen as Top Terrorist Threat by U.S. Law Enforcement by Brian Blanco on 5th of August 2014, and numerous other articles labeling anyone in the free exercise of rights and by stating they intend to murder anyone that fails to go along with their communist agenda without a trial and without due process of law by Obama's and now Biden's order followers, as evidenced by the Sovereign Citizen Quick Reference published by the Joint Terrorism Task Force Military Police and the Federal Bureau of Investigation Military Police, a true copy of which is attached hereto, all of which is incorporated herein by reference in its entirety in support of their targeted justice agenda, as evidenced by on the targetedjustice.com website, and to refuse to investigate or prosecute the felonies against certain targeted people like me. I guess I was striking terror into the hearts of crooked tyrant bureaucrats. And this is John Locke, Two Trees' Government, Book 2. Tyranny is the exercise of power beyond right, which nobody can have a right to. And this is making use of power anyone has in his hands, not for the good of those who are under it, but for his own private separate advantage. When the governor, however entitled, makes not the law but his will the rule, and his commands and actions are not directed to the preservation of the properties of his people, but to the satisfaction of his own ambition, revenge, covetousness, or any other irregular passion. 'Tis a mistake to think this fault only in monarchies, other forms of government are liable to it as well as that. For wherever the power that is put in any hands for the government of the people and the preservation of their properties is applied to other ends and made use of to impoverish, harass, and subdue them to the arbitrary and irregular commands of those who have it, there it presently becomes tyranny, whether those that use it are one or many. And that's John Locke, Two Treatises of Government, Book 2, Chapter 18, Sections 199 and 201. Because of this, I was continually being harassed at or near the border crossings and elsewhere. DFW Airport's Transportation Security Administration singled me out for additional screening on several occasions, one of them on 25 February 2011. 27 February 2011, Toronto, Canada, U.S. Customs singled me out for harassment. 3rd February 2013, Border Patrol checkpoint on I-10, 7 miles west of Sierra Blanca, Texas. I was forcibly dragged into their office and held there for about 45 minutes. August 23rd, I was delayed by customs for so long at the Calgary airport that I missed my flight. They told me I should do a FOIA request with the U.S. Marshals, which I did, and got back over 500 pages, mostly of my notice and demands that I'd served on government officials accepting their oath of office. Heaven forbid. On October 2013, I was arrested by the Canada Border Thugs, Five Eyes Alliance at the border crossing in Coutts, Alberta, Canada, because of a lookout notice in their system that shows that I had stated I had the right to resist an unlawful arrest with lethal force if necessary, and that I was armed and dangerous. March 2014, I was in the U.S. consulate at Calgary, Canada, and they delayed my passport application over lunch. And when I went downstairs, the Calgary police were waiting for me based on a fake color of law warrant, who told me that they got a phone call from the U.S. consulate. Five Eyes Alliance. July 9th, 2014, I was notified that I'm a threat and my airframe power plant license and student pilot certificate were revoked. My last compensation for labor contract in July 2015 with GKN Aerospace, Montgomery, Alabama. The head office is in the United Kingdom, Five Eyes Alliance. When they laid me off after 6 weeks, they told me it had nothing to do with my work performance, but that their corporate office had ordered it. I have not been able to get a compensation for labor contract in aviation since September 2015. My daughter and son-in-law are afraid that they will lose their security clearance if I visit my grandsons and daughter. And my other son in the Navy is afraid he'll lose his security clearance if I visit. Chad Yarborough, special agent in charge of the Dallas field office of the Federal Bureau of Investigation Military Police, refused to investigate the felony criminal complaints against the County of Montague corporate thieves, and Leah Simonton, U.S. Attorney, refused to prosecute them in support of their communist Chinese buddies and their targeted justice agenda, as evidenced in targetedjustice.com website, to refuse to investigate or prosecute felonies against certain targeted individual people like me. All the wrongdoers described herein and others, the subject of another lawsuit, clearly intend that I turn up dead so they can pillage the fake money from the Treasury Direct Account, 31 CFR 363.6, under the Hague Convention concerning the international administration of the estates of deceased persons, concluded 2nd of October 1973. And if I do turn up dead, this is my deathbed testimony. In 1873, the Supreme Court of the United States stated that everyone and everything not privileged is sovereign. The rights of sovereign extend to all persons and things not privileged that are within the territory. They extend to strangers resident therein, not only to those who are naturalized, but to those who are domiciled therein, having taken up their abode with the intention of permanent residence, but also to those whose residence is transitory. All strangers are under the protection of the sovereign while they are within his territory and owe a temporary allegiance in return for that protection. Because we have a republican form of government, we're all sovereign citizens, as evidenced by House Joint Resolution 183, dated May 3rd, 1940, at 54 Stat 178, says in the preamble, whereas it is desirable that the sovereign citizens of our nation be prepared for the responsibilities and impressed with the significance of their status in our self-governing republic. Whereas some 2 million, and I read this earlier, and because the government is subordinate to the people, let a state be considered to the people, but everything else be subordinate to the state. Because we the people are the state. And the courts have ruled numerous times that we the people are sovereign. Now, let's see if I've read these. I think I've read all of these. Yeah, I have. Therefore, any attack on sovereign citizens of this country is an attack against the republic itself, evidencing an intent to use force to overthrow the supreme law of the land, evidencing the attacker's intent to perjure their oath to the supreme law of the land, as found in Article 4, Clause 2, to support Article 4, Clause 3, our Republican form of government, Article 4, Clause 4. They conferred against the government the right to be let alone, the most comprehensive of rights and most valued by civilized men. Supreme Court, 1990. In doing this, I shall have occasion, incidentally to events, how true it is that states and governments were made for man, and at the same time how true it is that his creatures and servants have first deceived, next vilified, and at last oppressed their master and maker. A state like a merchant makes a contract, a dishonest state like a dishonest merchant willfully refuses to discharge it. Because many of the attackers tend to be screened for low intelligence military police officers and bar members, both of which are in support of the martial law and military occupation. There's three kinds of martial law. There's full martial law. Declaration of martial law is issued, troops put on the street, used only during wartime, used on a foreign country when actually invaded by a foreign power, or to put down an armed rebellion. Martial law proper, law of the armed forces. When a captain tells a private what to do, it's enforced by court-martials. Martial law rule, the law of necessity and emergency, allows the domestic use of martial law powers as used during peace times. And that's taken from Ex parte Milligan, a U.S. Supreme Court. That's like during the Civil War. Any attack on sovereign citizens of this country is, at an absolute minimum, a seditious conspiracy between the Federal Bureau of Investigation, military police, and the local military police and or bar members to engage in fifth-generation warfare with fraud, lies, and deception against we the people, as described by Lieutenant General Flynn in his book about fifth-generation warfare. And this is seditious conspiracy statute, 18 U.S.C. 2384. And the evidence shows that because we were attacked by Cuba, Venezuela, Serbia, China, and others, and some NATO countries in 2020 with election interference, which is an act of war, that we are at war. And because China is heavily involved in fifth-generation warfare, and Klaus Schwab's World Economic Forum is engaging in fifth-generation war with his "you will own nothing and be happy" agenda, which is the complete opposite of constitutional principles of property ownership and free enterprise, as described in Lieutenant General Flynn's book about the subject. And anyone who attacks our self-governing republic or we the people is giving aid and comfort to the enemy in a time of war, which is treason, as well as several other felonies. Anyways, that's basically it. And then let me show you, let's see if I can find that intelligence bulletin, not the intelligence bulletin. Well, I might have that here too. I've got the thing notarized, but I haven't attached the stuff yet to it.
May I?
Sorry?
May I? This is Robert. I have a question concerning the first document that you went over, particularly item 20 regarding the oaths and your acceptance of their oaths. And I was talking with our Chief Justice here in Florida today, and we were going over that very aspect. And according to him, these people are not taking oaths that are legitimate oaths. In fact, our Governor DeSantis here in the de facto has his oath is he's swearing allegiance to the Constitution as opposed to the Constitution of the United States of America. So they're playing little word games in that regard. And another aspect of these people, especially with these Nisi Prius courts that we're dealing with, has to do with them doing business as. In other words, they're setting themselves up to be acting in their private capacities, and he says you can't go after them for treason because of that. And I don't know what your slant is on that. While I've got the mic, before I yield, I'd like to make a comment regarding the individual on YouTube that made the snide comment. He or she is either a troll or an idiot or both, because in just simply not bothering you while you're doing your presentation, that's merely being polite, not that we're ignorant here in this meeting. So anyway, would you, I don't know if you want to discuss what I just said about the oaths in the private capacity, but it bears direct relation to how the guy on the last video that I think I listened to that you were doing, where he had done research, or the one before where he had done research on state of Texas, and it was cash cow doing business as, and that seems to be the same way that these people are doing that. I, having made the comments that I've made, leave the ball in your court to do either discuss more or continue with your thing. I yield.
Well, I've heard the similar things. I think there's going to be major changes. I think that they can't get away from that stuff. The Brunsons brought a lawsuit in the Supreme Court, and I've heard that is pending a ruling, and it might have been ruled on, and the military classified it. I don't know, but I got to step aside for a minute. I'll be right back, okay? But I've heard that stuff. I think it's going to come to an end pretty soon.
Yeah, and we know who those trolls are that are speaking those comments. So we'll deal with those accordingly. Don't worry about it.
I'm really glad he covered capitis deminutio. It's ironic that, in the second level of that, before you become a slave and your rights have been diminished, that it reflects the same way that we've been taught in English to do a proper noun out of our name with uppercase and lowercase. Imagine that.
Yeah, he's really starting to pay attention to that. The friend that's given him that info has changed some of his writing, and when he gets back, I'm going to mention that because he's altered some of his words for. Well, I'm going to ask him why he's done that, so we'll find out his rationale behind it.
Well, there was another thing that he did in using all caps on the word "not" in his first document, and I wouldn't do that. I don't want to use a debased form of Latin or American Sign Language, and that's part of their fraud that they're doing, because now you're mixing two different languages on the document. The other thing is if you're gonna get their attention, you put it in bold, and that's called shouting, as opposed to making it all caps, because by mixing two languages on a document, as they are doing. Actually, I would say they're mixing at least three languages on their document: the all caps in a debased form, where they're not following the punctuation of American Sign Language, which is the only source that we've been able to find so far in any of the style manuals on English, and that comes from the Chicago Manual of Styles on English, which also happens coincidentally to be the same manual that is the official manual for Washington, D.C. And they're also mixing in legalese like Japanese or Chinese. It's an ease, which is why they have their own dictionaries with their own definitions. And one of the words that I love to express to people so that they really get that is, if I say to you the word rectum, what comes to mind?
Orifice, thanks to Glenn Fern. Are you back, Glenn?
I am back. The thing that I agree that there's all these tricks. I think a lot of that stuff's going to come to an end. There's a huge amount of corruption. I think that was part of what Trump was doing, is exposing the corruption. and I think that that was what's it's all going to come to an end here. But I guess we'll see. But I can tell you that there was an arrest today, and I'm just attaching some files to this PDF right now.
Are we going to get him in the pedophile treatment center that I sent you?
I don't, and I don't know. I have no idea. All I know is it was on CNBC. I get CNBC on my app on my phone, so I can see what the stocks are doing and stuff like that. And there was a somebody that got arrested. Let's see if I can pull it up on my app. It was like a former governor of the Federal Reserve Board. Somebody that's like,
Yeah, he's going to be going to the treatment center. I'll post the treatment center.
Couldn't happen to a nicer guy, eh?
Yeah.
I tend to wonder this helicopter crash. I wonder if there's something going on with that too. I tend to wonder there's something going on. Anyways, I'm going to upload. I'm going to show my. So this is the sovereign citizen quick reference from the FBI and the Joint Terrorism Task Force. I'm going to be filing this into my court case because there's people that call me sovereign citizens, and so I'm getting ready to break it off in their ass. I went and did similar things with the U.S. attorney, and they've gone completely silent. Haven't heard a peep out of them since. And so, but anyways. So this is the sovereign citizen quick reference, and if you, it's basically stuff that some of the stuff I do, sign documents with an unusual signature. Well, my signature's none of your damn business, anyways. Reference UCC codes, probate type language. Yeah, so what? And when making a current appearance, this is typical stuff. Okay, so and then this is the intelligence bulletin that they put out in 2010, and I could show you the letter that I sent to the Montana Director of Public Safety, and it's about 8 pages, but it's anyways. So I'm getting ready to break this off in there, but this is going to be a separate lawsuit, and Paxton. So Paxton's got to know that it's coming, and I tried to add Paxton with my second amended demand for relief. See, they're using capitis diminutio, so anyways, so we'll see what happens. I think that it's getting ready because there's been regime change. Okay, I really think that we've had regime change. Trump is in power, and everything's going to change. It's going to be huge. It's going to be a lot of chaos. But so we're in the middle of regime change, and so this is what's coming. So I think that. We'll see. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I posted the pedophile treatment center in your room, Glenn.
Okay, let me go there. Oh, there we go. Yeah, well, yeah.
Well, I would like to take this opportunity to say I'm very honored to be here. I became aware of the Sestakay Trust, aka the birth certificate, aka the ens legis legal person, et cetera, about 16 and a half years ago. And I've been listening to you about just as long. And I've learned quite a bit from you and others along the way. But, I'm very pleased to be able to be speaking to you directly now. And incidentally, I'm the guy that you sent the link to that I was emailing you, and I did get your upload your second amended version of your paperwork on the court case. I appreciate the invite very much. Thank you.
Well, it's a networking thing. I don't know everything, but it'll give you a place to start at least. But I brought that action. The case had already been closed and my time for appeal was up. And so they didn't tell me that there was a judgment. They just railroaded it. And so I brought it as a collateral attack. And the judge has taken it. He's taken it and he's not dismissing it. And but I tell him that this is an inferior. It's actually, there's court cases to talk about. This is not an Article 3 court, and because I'm a state citizen and these are U.S. citizens, then we don't get an Article 3 court for this type of controversy, anyways. But the bottom line is that you work for me. I am posterity. You work for me, and that's the bottom line. And I'm giving instructions to you to regulate your subordinates as found in Article 4, Section 3, Clause 2, which is what you're supposed to do. But I'm respectful. He tells me to do something, I go ahead and do it. I don't argue with him. And so he's been babysitting me. The way I look at it is he's babysitting me, and I appreciate it. And so I think that I think that right now, I mean, with regime change, with the stuff that's going on with Trump, let me see if I can find that article about that arrest. See, I think that it's dominoes. I think the shit is getting ready to hit the fan, but it's not going to be Trump himself doing it. He's just going to allow it happen, allow the government, the military, the investigators to do their job without interference. And I think that's what's going to happen. Anyways, let me see if I can find that article. It's in my CNBC. Oh, here we go. It's in the CNBC on my app, and it says DOJ charges former senior Fed official with conspiracy to commit economic espionage. Okay, this is like huge, and I think this is just a domino. I think that it's just going to be one thing after the next, and ultimately it's going to lead to Schiff and to Pelosi and to who knows who else. It's the shit is getting ready to hit the fan. Anyways, Fauci, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I don't watch Fox anymore. I caught a clip on YouTube.
Sorry, who's talking?
Oh, this is Mark. I caught a clip. I caught a clip on YouTube this morning. I caught a clip on YouTube this morning where a general mentioned that helicopter was part of continuity of government. He said that on Fox.
Might have been. I think that there's definitely something to that. I think that they're not telling anybody about it yet. We'll see. This airplane, I know for a fact that they have systems in airplanes like these heavy jets. I don't know about that regional jet, but I can tell you for sure in the heavy jets that are fly-by-wire, like a 777, those things are fly-by-wire. They don't have cables that go from the control yoke out to the aileron to move the aileron. It's a switch, and it's all fly-by-wire. I know because I do aerospace engineering consulting. I've worked on airplanes all my life. That stuff is all fly-by-wire nowadays, and so they have actually systems where somebody on the ground can take over the airplane. And but I'm not sure about that CRJ. That's a Bombardier airplane, and I'm not sure about that. And I'm pretty sure that system isn't in a helicopter. So I don't know how that happened or why, but it's very suspicious. I'm sure it'll ultimately come out what's going on. I guess we'll see. We're all a captive audience, but I think that we have good people. And there's a lot of really good people in government. Yes, there's crooks, and there's a lot of crooks, but there's a lot of good people there too. And they want us to lose confidence in our institutions, and so we can't allow them to win. What you need to do is what I would suggest everybody do is there's some Rumble videos with General Flynn, and you need to watch those because he goes through this 5th generation warfare and how that works. And the guy is he's got this Boone Cutler on there, and they talk about about all of that stuff. I would say on Alpha Warrior. Okay, he's got some really good videos with General Flynn, and they talk about this stuff. And he's also got Patrick Byrne. I would highly encourage everybody to buy that Patrick Byrne's docuseries. It's on Rumble. It's only $5, and you can watch the whole series. And it goes through. It's a series of 3 videos. It's about 2.5 hours. Anyways, it's well worth the watch. Patrick Byrne is a patriot, and he is actually, there's a $25 million bounty on his head right now. He's hiding out in Indonesia because he's got to keep a low profile. He might come back to America now that Trump is in office. But yeah, Patrick Byrne is a major patriot. You got to watch that. He was actually invited. You got to watch the video. I'm not going to tell you about it, but you got to watch it and to understand what's going on right now, and that there's white hats. We have a lot of good people that work in government. We are at war, okay, and it's going to get kinetic. It's going to get kinetic. It's going to be really, really ugly. I think that we're probably, in the next year or two, we're probably going to invade Cuba. We're probably going to invade Venezuela. Who knows, what else is going to happen? I think we're going to be going to war with China. I hate to say it, but I this is my opinion. You got to understand, it's my opinion, but I think that's what's coming. So we'll see. We're all a captive audience, but I would say definitely watch that Patrick Byrne docuseries. The Enemy Within talks about the Obama administration, talks about some of the stuff that I just talked about in my affidavit. So I would highly recommend everybody to be to educate yourself about this stuff, because they want us to lose confidence in our institutions. They want anarchy. They want all of the stuff that they've been trying to do. Obama was trying to do it. He wanted to start a race war, and so we got to do everything we can to prevent that stuff from happening. And so I just can't say it enough. And what's that?
I noticed in your writing you've changed some of your wording, because in the beginning you used to call yourself Caucasian, and now you're specifying you're white, which I know it's because of the change in our environment and just, what's going on. And I think that's totally valid. So I just noticed that change in your writings.
Well, I only put white there because that's what the court case says. That's the only reason I put it there. Otherwise, I don't talk about it. And it really doesn't matter, okay? There's black people that have been able to do this stuff, because who knows who was sleeping with who in the 1700s. I mean, it's well known that a lot of these slave owners would go and get girls pregnant. There's a lot of black people that their last name's Jefferson. And it's probably because that they're descendants of Thomas Jefferson.
And that didn't just occur in the black race, that occurs in every race.
No, that's and so it really doesn't matter about your skin color. And all you have to do is say the words. It was like during Obama during the Obama administration, it's amazing how many people, white people, would say I'm black because they could get special privileges by saying so.
Or I'm mixed, or I'm quarter, or
Whatever, yeah.
I'm a halfer. Don't get me going, Glenn, because
Yeah, but in calling yourself white and being of the peerage, it also has to do with what the 14th Amendment was originally created for the recently freed slaves who were emancipated that no state wanted as a citizen. And so Washington, D.C. gave them a whole different form of slavery. And they're all subject to all the codes, rules, statutes, and ordinances of Washington, D.C. and its territories. And now they, through that Subsidy Act, they've conferred that upon everybody.
It's
birth, which is unconscionable. They usurped our birthright. I don't really like the word birthright. It's more like born right, because they've hijacked birth, the word
Yeah,
birth
really.
as well.
Right.
Well, you know, it's the birth certificate, you know, as opposed to the, you know, the certificate of live birth is also there, but they mirror image everything. So
Yeah, it's all about
anyway,
deception.
yeah.
It's
As
divide and
far as the
conquer.
plane, yeah. As far as that plane that went down, the first thing that crossed my mind was, somebody took control of something, the helicopter or the plane. And what the hell was that military plane doing in that airspace with that plane coming down for a landing in the first place? And then on top of that, who was on that plane? Who did they
Yeah.
rub out?
Yeah, no
That's
joke.
what I'm wondering.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm wondering too. I was looking at some of the on the news today. I mean, those kids, there was a figure skating team that was on there. A bunch of 12-year-olds, 12,
Yeah.
13-year-olds.
Yeah.
It's really, really
Isn't that
sad.
sad? Oh man. Yeah. But who are they not talking about? That's what I want to know.
Well, they're going to conduct their investigation, and I'll bet you the truth comes out. And I'm just waiting to see what happens. I think that we do have a lot of good, honorable people in government that are doing good work. And so Trump just needs to let them do their job is all he needs to do. And I think that's what he's doing. So he's getting rid of the crooks, and he's letting the good people just do their job. And I think that all hell is about to break loose. I'm telling you, I really do. And so what we need to do as we need to educate ourselves about what's really happening and not allow ourselves to get caught up in it, and remain calm and know that there's good people that are in charge, and they're taking care of business. And I think that is like really, really important. You got to watch those General Flynn videos about fifth generation warfare.
We're taking care of business as well. I'm with the United States Assembly, and we're assembled in all 50 states. I understand that you are a senator in Texas, and I'm not sure exactly how your structure is set up, but I'm with Anavon Rights, and the whole thing behind what we're doing is holding our subcontractors feet to the fire. Trump is one of them. He's not actually president of the United States in so much as you would think as president, as we've been led to believe presidents are. He's president of a corporation, and it's already bankrupt and defunct. So the question is, what's he president of at the moment, and is he going to capitulate to his contract being the Constitution for the United States of America? And we're gonna see it. Like you say, it's gonna be an interesting ride. I've got my popcorn, and I've been sharpening my bullets just in case I see a bunch of blue helmeted individuals running around in the woods behind me. That would be invasion.
Yeah.
So
Well,
you never know. Last thing in the world I want to see is it go kinetic. Though we're trying to do this by the law.
Well, I think also that we have to. I think that what'll happen is, and this is what I'm thinking about doing, and other people I know is going to the county sheriff and tell them that we're a militia, and we want them to know that we're here to help them and support them, and if they need us, to just call us up and we'll be there for them. You know what I mean?
Well, our position with the sheriff is he's incorporated. So unless, and so many of them are on the take with this, they're unreliable. Not that they're unreachable.
It doesn't matter that they're incorporated. That's immaterial. You know what I use. I'm not going to argue with you. Okay, I can tell you that I am in court, and I just tell them that the government can't commit treason. That's one of the first things I learned a long time ago, is that the government can't commit treason. And so if there's some government official that's doing something he shouldn't do, then he's operating in his private capacity. And I go after people all the time. I went and you weren't here when I was talking about it earlier, but I sued the chief judge of the Supreme Court of Texas, among others. There's other people that I'm suing too. And the attorney general came in and tried to represent him, and I did a motion to strike. And to strike it because he doesn't have standing, because the attorney general is supposed to be hiring his own private lawyer. And so the attorney general, so I did a motion to strike. And so then the next time the attorney general came in with the chief judge of the Supreme Court, they actually had a court case that said that they can make a settlement for the attorney general. And I said, I don't want a settlement. I want his bond, not a penny more, not a penny less. Maybe he can dig ditches or something. I don't want him doing what he's doing because he's perjuring his oath of office. And so maybe he can dig ditches or live in a cardboard box or something, and he should get the kind of punishment he's trying to impose on me. And so, and then he resigned. And so, I don't know if it had anything to do with me. I can tell you that I use that argument all the time. The government can't commit treason. So I don't care if they're incorporated or not. The government itself cannot commit treason. If he does anything that's a violation of the law, he's in his private capacity, and you go after him personally. And that's the way you do it. And I've done that. I'm doing it now. I'm in federal court right now in Fort Worth, and I've been to the Supreme Court 5 times, and so I can say with some authority, I've had cases dismissed so fast that I didn't even have a chance to effect service on anybody. And so the judge in this case, they've tried all sorts of ways to get it dismissed, and the judge, all he does is he says, I got this motion here, and you need to respond by this date, or you might get a response from the court without a response from you. And so I respond. He's babysitting me. I appreciate him telling me. And so I disagree completely. The government can't commit treason. If he's doing something he shouldn't be doing, then he's in his private capacity, and you go after him in his private capacity. That's the way you do it. And so the government can't commit treason.
Well, see, that's why I was talking about the oaths and these people, acting like cash cow is doing business as, and that's what they seem to be doing. That they're already in their private capacities, so they're posing as judges, and I am wondering how that works when the judges at the county level have been voted in by the people, and so it all smacks of treason. And
not all judges. We
Well,
here we say they're selected. They're not elected.
I was at the Northeast Private Information Chair in New Jersey, and a friend of mine who's a disbarred lawyer called me up, and he conferenced me in with another guy he was talking about that how he knew some lawyers who had cut up their bar card and were making up their own license plate and traveling. And these lawyers, he said, that if they ever get attacked by the state, they automatically take it into the federal court and it gets resolved, because the feds, it's the supreme law of the land. It's these are federally protected rights. I wouldn't trust the state for anything. They're nothing but a bunch of crooks, in my opinion, and get the feds to slap them. And so you got to bring up the right issues. You got to, if you take it into federal court, you got to explain to them. I've had cases. I filed a lawsuit in Arizona, and the Arizona Attorney General removed it into federal court. And all they did is they said that it's federally protected rights, and all of that. And I didn't really want it in federal court, and so I got belligerent, and the federal court dismissed it But my problem went away. That problem, it was over property taxes. I never heard another peep out of them. And that was like about 3 or 4 years ago. And so the point being is that the feds is where it's supposed to be. They have these are federally protected rights, and you got to justify it under their codes about why it needs to be in the federal court. But that's all you have to do. And as long as you can justify it under their codes why they should have it, you can take it into federal court. You can remove it, or you can just bring the action. In this case here in Texas, it's over property taxes. They went and held a kangaroo court, and they didn't tell me there was a judgment, and they didn't even send me. They're supposed to send you a copy of the judgment. It's all denials of due process of law. They didn't file stuff I sent them, all sorts of stuff. Anyways, and so the judgment was already in place, and they were getting ready to sell my land. So I filed a collateral attack against them, and I called it a collateral attack against a void judgment. And the judge he's taken it. And it's been going on since August. So I think I'm getting ready to kick their butt is what's going to happen. We'll see. You don't know until it's done. But the judge has been sympathetic. I think they're letting me just do my thing, and they just sit there and let the case proceed. So, anyways, the government can't commit treason. If the official is doing stuff he shouldn't do, build a case against him and sue his butt. That's the way you're supposed to do it.
No, I think you got that squashed. That's going to be one you can chalk up to being quashed. You know what that word is.
There you go. Anyways, I think that's about it for today. Is there any more questions? It looks like from the chat here that there was a civil rights activist that was on that airplane. I don't know if that's why. I don't think that they would be targeting somebody like that. I would think that they would be targeting somebody else. But I don't know.
Incidentally, I loved when you went after Yellen.
Yeah. Well, I'm suing that minor estate. I'm telling them I want that thing dissolved and liquidated. Not today, yesterday. And I don't care, okay, again, because I have to have clean hands. If I tell them I want the fake money in there, I don't have clean hands. And so I tell them I don't care what you do with the fake money in it. You can put it up your rectal orifice. I want it dissolved and liquidated.
I tend to agree with you that you're making a deal with the devil, and on top of that, it's crime to begin with. It was fraud. Your mom didn't get full disclosure.
That's right. That's right.
And, yeah. So with regards to that, it vitiates everything, so they don't have a leg to stand on.
That's right.
And there's no statute of limitations on that. And also, it's a crime. So when you do that, and you go after that sort of stuff with IRS or whatever, or try and get an EIN number, or there's a lot of things that people are trying to do, and you're actually aiding and abetting criminals, which makes you a party to the crime.
Yeah, right, exactly.
As well as upholding this fraudulent crap with the Federal Reserve notes. That I got Supreme Court rulings that say if I stole your Federal Reserve notes out of your pocket, I couldn't be charged with stealing because I didn't steal anything worth anything. They're nothing but promissory notes.
No doubt. No doubt.
Yeah.
That's the thing is you got to have clean hands. You got to have the clean hands doctrine. If you look it up in the Maxims of Equity. You got to have clean hands. I don't want, quite frankly, they'll probably have to give it to me, but I really don't care. They can put it up the rectal orifice. I want nothing to do with it. I want the damn thing dissolved and liquidated is what I want. Anyways, if there's anything else, otherwise I think we'll be good till next week. Same time, same place, same channel. We've been going for 2 hours now.
Be good till next week, same
That would be awesome. Yes. Same time, same everything next week.
God bless you, Glenn.
All right. Thanks everybody for your interest, and it's a networking thing. So I uploaded that stuff to so that you can the original, the affidavit of citizenship.
Okay,
Somebody's
thank you
got
so much.
their speaker on and it's echoing.
That might be me. Let me mute.
Anyways, thanks everybody for your interest and your participation, and we'll see you next week, same time, same place, same channel.
Sounds good, Glenn. You have a good weekend. Thank you again.
You guys have a good one too. See you later.
Ciao.
Bye.